Jovian Jennies and Big Bang Bartholomews. Keep your nose cones clean. Double check your airlocks. And I want to explore the Milky Way, but I'm lactose intolerant.
Boop. Boop. This is one small episode for mankind. Boop. One large episode for Tull to me. Copy that. Boop.
Welcome back to the podcast. I am strapped in Owen Thomas.
And I am Nick McGill.
Together we are the Feckless Momes.
And this, my unidentified aerial phenomena, is Tull to me.
An untethered spacewalk outside the Proxima Centauri Prog Rock hyperstation, in which Nebula Nick and Orbital Omen will expose ourselves to the rock and roll radiation emanating from each and every track that Retro Thrusters rock band Jethro Tull have ever launched into the recesses of musical deep space. I don't even remember writing that. I wrote that today. Strange. We will watch in horror as Heat Shield Scott Hammond hammers through the heliosphere. We will subject our bodies to the G-forces of David Goodyear, and we will power our craft with cold fluorine-opal fusion. It can blow up, but when it works, it's great. And if we can survive the solar flares, untangle our turbo pumps, and iron out our ion engines, we may one day make first contact with that most intelligent of life forms, the spacefaring flautist, the Doppler effect duettist, the burn sequencer of Blackpool, the velocity vector virtuoso, Ian, breathe deeply while I probe the dark side of your moon, Anderson. I am your flute father.
His stuff is getting more and more sexual, and it makes me uncomfortable. I do have to say,
it's not me. It's not me. That's Ian.
Okay. I guess I can't blame you for that. You're right.
I'm just reading out loud what he says in my mind.
He is your Tyler Durden. Ian Anderson doesn't actually exist. Right. He's just in your mind.
Yeah, Jethro Tull is actually just it's a sign of a tumor, in fact.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Collective hallucination is Jethro Tull.
That's right. And aren't we lucky?
So fortunate to be blessed.
So blessed to be fortunate to be talking about another Jethro Tull track here on today's episode. Nick, what is the track about which we are going to be talking?
We are starting the second half of the last portion of this entire album. We're on the second to last track. It is chapter 14 off of Homo Erraticus. It is Per Errationes Ad Astra.
And to review, this is in part 3, Revelations.
Yep.
Starting with In for a Pound, continuing the browning of the green, and now we are at Per Errationes Ad Astra.
That's right. Terribly exciting.
Terribly exciting. Mm-hmm. I must take some Quaaludes. So I'm so excited.
Quaaludes aren't around anymore, right? Didn't they, they just decided they're just so bad they just stopped making them? I think they just don't make Quaaludes anymore. They stopped in the 80s. After all of the stock market bros abused them or something, I don't know.
Do they still make Quaaludes? No. Wow. Wait a minute. I didn't know this.
So sorry. I got you the last bottle for Christmas, and make them last.
President Reagan banned the domestic production and sale of Quaaludes in 1984. They haven't even been around in our lifetime.
Nailed it. Yeah.
They are still made in other parts of the world.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Interesting. Well, on that note, Nick, why don't we have a listen to Per Errationes Ad Astrum? We're going to put the ass back in Ad Astra.
Well, astrum would be singular, so it would be a star. The Ad Astra would be plural. Like forum and fora. Like medium and media.
Whoa. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
A lot to think about.
Let that percolate while we're listening to this jazz poet song.
I'm going to listen to that thought in my head while I also listen to these songs. Let's have a listen.
We thought it over for a century or two, considered all in light of such short history.
Damn.
Damn indeed, Omen.
Ooh, Nick.
Damn indeed.
So you preface this by saying, hey, heads up, this has no music in it, just so you know.
Yes, that was off mic, but yes, there is no music in this.
And I was like, oh, wow. But then listening to it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I kind of want more of this. Like, I would be open to Ian recording an entire spoken word album.
Especially now where he's like really gravelly.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
I'm a little surprised that it took 83 years for the first spoken word track.
Is it, though?
Is it a spoken word track or is it a surprise?
Neither.
Neither of those.
Is it the first? Because we do have instances of recitations in other Tull. I'm thinking, of course, of the hare who lost his spectacles, which, of course, before you mention this, it is backtracked. It's Mickey Moused. It's underscored with music.
Yeah. And this has a little bit of atmosphere, a little bit of environmental sculpting through sound.
Some sound effects.
Yeah.
SFX.
Right. I think I would confidently say that it is officially the first, with little dabblings here and there.
Now, if you're talking chronologically, then you may be right. But I do remember that in Rock Flute, we do have some recitation.
Yes, we do.
Which is actually one of the most memorable parts of the album for me.
Yeah.
So, I'm happy to listen to it. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a minute and a half. It's a very interesting production of Ian's little monologue here.
You know, it reminds me of radio theater.
Yes. Yeah, a bit.
The theater of the mind.
Yeah.
Of which there is a big, long tradition in Britain and also in the United States, actually.
Yeah. We have plenty of that.
In fact, you probably know Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I know of it. Yeah, I've never read it.
So it's a series of books, but it was actually, before it was published as a book, it was a Radio BBC radio play.
Wow, I didn't realize it was before the books.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, he I think he had been writing the books, but Douglas Adams ended up producing it with the BBC, and it's fantastic. It's sort of a watermark for radio storytelling. Got a lot of sound effects, a lot of music. It's really, really fun.
Interesting. Fun little fact there is the guy who helped produce it is John Lloyd, who is the guy who created QI, one of my favorite British panel shows.
Oh, really?
He's the boss of the people who do the podcast No Such Thing as a Fish, which is one of my favorite podcasts.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah, he's still around kicking, and he's had a prolific career in putting like really good stuff on TV and radio.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So I feel like this track kind of is pulling from a lot of different traditions at the same time. One of them, we could say, it has that relationship to audio theater with the sound effects and all that. It also feels a bit like a sermon.
Yes, definitely, especially with that little chant in there at about 30 seconds in.
Errationes Ad Astra, then dream on. The dream is all good sense gone.
And with the reverb, you can imagine this being spoken into a grand space, such as a church or a space cavern.
Yeah, into space itself, where it echoes. Yeah, we do have bits of reverb. We have 1 or 2 points of actual echo as well.
Yes.
But it's not consistent all the way through, which I think is for the better. I think it would be far less potent.
Correct. Yes, I agree.
If it was just the entire thing was reverberating.
Yeah, it's very specific where the acoustic qualities and filters change. I also, it is worth remembering that in some of the prehistoric days, if we go back to circa Heavy Metals or circa Doggerland or circa Enter the Uninvited, there was a long bardic tradition of reciting epic poems and by memory.
Homer,
and
yeah.
What'd you call me? Yeah. Or wasn't there before one of the big battles that Charlemagne was involved with? Wasn't there a bard who went and was like, before this huge battle, let me just recite this cool poem for 2 hours, and he walked up and down the ranks, throwing his jingle stick up in the air and reciting all this.
Jingle stick. I don't know. I've never heard that before. That's really cool, though.
So it is very theatrical. It does, like you pointed out, it feels like a monologue. Like you imagine Ian doing the history of mankind as a one-person show.
Yes, he steps forward and addresses the audience. Yeah.
I mean, I would, if it was an hour long, I would watch it.
If I could pause it for a bit and come back to it.
Yeah, if they served really good snacks, I would go and see it.
Snacks. Yeah, that would do it for me. Yeah.
Oh, we could do this album as a theater piece, and each track would serve a snack. Tracks for snacks.
Tracks for snacks. Love it.
With Doggerland, we'd serve dog biscuits.
Or dog.
Yeah.
They probably ate dog back then.
For Enter the Uninvited, we'd shove breadsticks into people's mouths.
Yep.
Olive oil breadsticks, obviously. Thematically.
Oh, yes. Okay.
The Romans.
Yeah.
What I really enjoy, so since there's no music, we're not really going to talk about the music section, I guess.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate that when Ian does these recitations, they're not prose. He is still reciting verse.
Yes, that's true.
And so there is a structure there, but he is free enough in the structure to put emphasis on words in a way that isn't predetermined by the music. And for that reason, this is probably one of my favorite tracks off the album, because you can really get into what he's saying. What is it? What is it, girl?
Did we have a full recitation track on Thick as a Brick too? Or was it just the start of Sensitive and Caring? I remember that. I think it was just the intro to a track.
Ooh, this is a good question. Errationes Ad Astra.
Through questioning to the stars.
TABAB.
Tababa.
Tababa 2. Oop, not 11.
That's the name of your first album, is Tababa 11.
Gerald Bostock, fresh from school with few O-levels, sets his sights. No grand, fanciful fantasies, but level-headed middle ground. The retail trade, the corner shop, at humble service of plain town folk. Open at 9 and close by 6.
Yeah, this is all spoken.
Yeah. Which one is that one?
Regulars
Cozy Corner.
Oh, okay.
I think once we get into Shunt and Shuffle he sings.
Yeah. Yeah, but this one has more music than per Errationes does, though. So
it's backtracked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got the Humpty Dumpty band.
Yeah, the Humpty Dance.
How of all the things that I've told you, why do you remember that?
I didn't until you literally said Humpty Dumpty.
The Humpty Dance, Ian has said this, is your chance to do the hump.
Is that what he said about it?
He says that,
Wow.
yeah.
Very caring, that man. Supportive.
Yeah, I called you fat. Look at me, I'm skinny. It never stopped me from getting busy. I'm sick with it. I like the girls with the boom. I once got busy in a Burger King bathroom.
That's not something to brag about, I don't think.
Like, that's unsanitary.
Yeah. You probably have tetanus now.
In relation to the sound effects and kind of the soundscape,
we get a weird... When he's talking about the being in the little can, at 44.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that's supposed to be. It's this weird... It's not echoey. It's not like mechanical. I'm going to listen to it one more time. I can't place it. I was trying to figure out what it was supposed to be there.
The right stuff in a can of Spam. The right stuff in a can of Spam.
I guess it's a really weird, tinny feedback of audio playing back. Like if your microphone picks up my microphone, picks up your microphone. I think that's what it is. Why it's there, I'm not entirely sure.
To me, it sounds like being stuck in a tin can. Like it sounds like...
Okay, yeah.
It sounds like the tinniness of your surroundings. I imagine, and the sound could have been produced in so many different ways, but I imagine it was like you take a violin bow and you scrape it across a piece of metal, and then you play it backwards on a tape recorder.
Yeah.
Or fast forward it on a tape recorder.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very strange sound. That's the only one that really pulls me out of it, just because it's so hard to identify. But it still adds something to it. It's still a really cool sound.
And that's the first real sound effect that we get.
Yes.
We do, before that we start off in kind of a neutral space. There's a little bit of ambient room tone.
Yeah.
But then with the phrase, "Would you let them loose upon the stars?" That's where that reverb comes in.
Yes, at 9 seconds.
Would you let them loose upon the stars?
And then, "But breeding like rabbits on other worlds." That is where we get the first echo. And
Yes, at 22, yeah.
Breeding like rabbits on other worlds and with other calmer spirits?
it's effective because it's like you have the replications of the sound like you might have the replications of the productive man rabbits.
The man rabbits.
Man rabbit!
And then just right after that, like we said, at 30 is when we get that reverb chant.
Yep. Around Orbiter's and Soyuz towered, we get the beginning of a sound effect, which presumably is the sound of a rocket launch.
Oh, the rocket, yes, at about just after 1, yep.
Orbiters and Soyuz towered on stacks of LOX and hydrogen. But what a little squib, a little firework in the cosmic crash of fiery fusion as far galaxies collide. Drowned in the vastness of all we see and still can only imagine.
And that's really it.
And then at the very end, at about 126, it's not, you know, that really weird sound that we get in Benefit that's like the pre-echo?
Yes.
It's kind of like that, but it's not before the sound. It's like a post pre-echo. It's very strange. I don't know how to track like what is happening when and where, but it's not just an echo. There's like a little English on there.
He'll wander hither if he can. He'll wander hither if he can.
What I appreciate is that for the last line, it drops back to that neutral space but his time may have already come.
Yeah.
And gone.
Yeah.
Why don't we drop into lyrics? Why don't we fire our lyrical engines?
Yeah, so what is per Errationes Ad Astra?
Well, Ad Astra is to the stars, plural.
Uh-huh.
Per Errationes, I would imagine Errationes is wanderings.
So it's through wandering to the stars.
Like errant.
Yes. Yeah.
It would be a word derived from this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Through wanderings to the stars. Is that an example of failing upward? Like, we didn't know what we were doing so hard, we ended up leaving the planet.
I think it's more from humble beginnings to where we've gone. Like, this is how we started.
Right.
Literally just wandering to find more food. And look at where we've ended up through all of these other stops along the way. Rome conquering,
yeah,
World Wars 1 and 2.
And it is interesting if you kind of count backwards, you could look at each one of these tracks leading up to space travel. You need the blacksmith to work with iron and then to invent steel.
Sure.
you need some kind of an empire to bring together different ideas of mathematics and physics and geometry.
And I imagine the war was a positive side effect of the war is innovation.
Well, positive or negative.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
I mean, there was a project, I forget the name of it, but after World War II, there was a big push by the American government because a lot of big innovations had been made by the Nazi rocketeers, engineers who were building rockets. And I think the rockets that were used in World War II were so much more advanced than what they had been before. And the U.S. government literally was like, hey, you guys were Nazi engineers. You probably don't want to go to The Hague.
Was that Paperclip? Project Paperclip?
Maybe. But basically like, hey, do you want to come work for us and we'll give you a free out?
Yeah,
and
right.
I forget who it was, but one of them was, just seamlessly transitioned from making rockets for the Nazis to making rockets for what then later became NASA.
It was exactly Operation Paperclip or Project Paperclip, yeah.
And do you remember the person's name?
That did that specifically?
There were a number of scientists, but one of them in particular.
Some noted aeronautics and rocketry. Oh, wow, there's a lot here. I can go through them all. Magnus von Braun, Werner von Braun, Hans
Werner von Braun.
Antnen. Seriously?
Yeah, it was Werner von Braun. Yeah, he's quite famous.
Wow, what a lucky. Oh my God, there are so many names here. What a lucky choice that was.
So, to your point, yes, there was a lot of innovation, and then tying in the economic side of this whole album, and trade and everything, the U.S. was in a position where it could say, yeah, we want your skills and we will trade capital for them.
Yes.
And capital has been achieved through empire and all these things. It all kind of comes together.
Yeah. And I just want to point out that the motto for the Royal Air Force is per ardua ad astra.
Through difficult work.
Yes, through adversity.
Through adversity to the stars.
But also arduous, yeah. Meaning difficult work.
Is that what it means?
Yeah.
We thought it over for a century or two, considered all in light of such short history.
We thought it over for a century or two, considered all in light of such short history.
First of all, who is the we?
Would you let them loose upon the stars?
Would you let them loose upon the stars? Them being humanity.
Right, yeah. We thought it over for a century or two.
There's no real indication of who is speaking in this. But to me, it very much smacks of, there's this trope in Star Trek. There's this kind of recurring plot line where some powerful, all-knowing, somewhat eternal being is like, a spaceship full of humans, this puny species, what shall we do with them? And then Captain Picard is like, I am extremely articulate and somehow French, even though I sound English. And they're like, well, that's a very good point. We'll let you go on your way.
Picard, bringing up those good points all over.
Yeah.
Just so good at it.
Would you let them loose upon the stars, bring their dark and murky waters to lap on pristine shores? Fine in their own place with their own destiny to follow, but breeding like rabbits on other worlds with other calmer spirits.
Would you let them loose upon the stars, bring their dark and murky waters to lap on pristine shores? Fine in their own place with their own destiny to follow, but breeding like rabbits on other worlds and with other calmer spirits?
This to me is like the Eternals, the planets themselves. Some intelligence in the universe being like, it's like the Ents almost, right? Like, we're going to talk about it for a minute. 2 centuries later, they're like, well, we've talked about it.
Yeah. I mean, there is that feeling of that higher power that we're just lucky that they didn't intercede.
Yes, it's not a benevolent power or a malevolent power necessarily.
Yeah.
It's just an intelligence.
It's the Watcher in Marvel. Just there to watch, literally just to watch and document history.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that he includes, in light of such a short history, after having just taken us from 10,000 years BCE,
Right? Yeah, because I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we are a blip.
Yes.
We are a teeny, teeny, tiny blip. Just in the history of the world itself, you know?
I was just going to say the
Yeah.
exact thing. In geological terms.
Dinosaurs were around longer than we have been around.
Much longer.
Yeah. Millions of years, millions.
And this sets up the whole question. Would you let them loose upon the stars?
Yeah.
Judging everything that we know about humanity, all of the everything that we've seen throughout this album,
Right. Yeah.
and take any other sources that you want. Would it, if you had control over it, would it be responsible to let them into other worlds?
They clearly don't play well with others.
They don't even play well with themselves.
You don't put two beta in the same tank because they'll fight and kill each other. You don't want them on another planet because they'll fight and kill whatever it is. They're just aggressive monkeys.
Dark and Murky Waters makes me think of Heavy Water,
Yes.
the song.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking too. Pollution, oil, radioactive runoff.
Is that Stormwatch?
That is the tail end of Stormwatch, I believe. No, not Stormwatch.
It was a bonus track, wasn't it?
Oh, Rock Island. It's Rock Island.
Pouring heavy water on me. Yeah. I submit to the alien presences who determine our future the entire work of Jethro Tull.
Please enjoy.
We've been denied.
Oh, well. Did you submit the podcast as an Exhibit C?
Let me try. We got double denied.
Okay, they're going to blow us up, actually.
Like us up right now. Per Errationes Ad Astra, then dream on. The dream is all good sense gone. Wow.
Errationes Ad Astra, then dream on. The dream is all good sense gone.
Yeah, through wandering to the stars, then dream on. The dream is all good sense is gone.
It is only a dream. We have these great stories of traveling beyond the stars. We have these amazing science fiction movies. We have this aspiration in our hearts as humanity. We have forever looked up at the stars and wondered. And I made a connection the other day as I was listening to The Engineer.
Mm-hmm.
That all was happening. Brunel was creating all this crazy new stuff that no one had ever thought of before at the same time that Jules Verne was writing. So that actually makes me think like, oh yeah, Jules Verne was seeing these huge advancements and just extending them a little bit.
Sure.
But, ever since, even before Jules Verne, but certainly with Jules Verne, we had this idea of traveling to the moon, traveling beyond. And what have we really done? Not that much. Like, all the space programs all together, we've put human beings on our own moon, and that's as far as we've gotten.
Yeah, pretty much.
We've sent out some cool probes,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not really doing, we haven't gone ad Astra, we've gone a Luna.
They've certainly chilled out once we landed on the moon, I think.
And that's the next verse. Neil, Buzz, and Michael, they made a team, the right stuff in a can of Spam.
Neil, Buzz, and Michael, they made a team. The right stuff in a can of Spam.
The right stuff, of course, a reference to the film The Right Stuff.
Yes, the idea of the team who put that all together, having the right stuff to have made it work.
There was even a specific astronaut that they called Jimmy the Right Stuff.
Oh,
Magoo.
interesting, yeah.
Not his actual name. The brave adventure come to naught. Cruel economics had their say.
The brave adventure came to naught. Cruel economics had their say.
The space program was at some point determined just too expensive to keep running once NASA beat the Russians to the moon. It's been a little bit on the back burner since then.
Yeah, we did what we set out to do, and other things took precedence over it. But we established our dominance. We were on the moon first.
Until slightly after this album was released, then we started having the rise of the egomaniacal billionaires.
Yes.
Who have aspirations and dreams of planet colonization and all these things. And taking our opinions about that out of it for a second, it is in line with this kind of, the march of progress. Progress must be made. But it's also, of course, in line with economics, because a big part of these ideas are to mine asteroids and all that stuff.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point because I think it's tied in with this idea of, well, should we let these people inhabit other planets because look what they've done? One of the reasons we're thinking about inhabiting Mars is because we've ruined our planet.
That's one of the arguments, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the alien overlords will give us a slap on the wrist and say, no, clean it up.
How'd you get the pollution on Earth then? I rubbed humanity's nose in it.
And it worked. It worked.
It worked. I wish it would.
And I also got rid of all of the Republicans.
Oh. A tiny bubble of pure white light from mighty engines roared on pad 39A in the night.
A tiny bubble of pure white light from mighty engines roared on pad 39A in the night.
That's the pad that the Apollo 11 took off of.
A song for Michael, Jeffrey, Collins, and me.
Yeah, exactly.
A song for Michael, Collins, Jeffrey, and me.
Yeah. But Michael, Colin, Jeffrey, and me.
Oh, the Oxford comma. A song for the Oxford comma.
And Jeffrey.
And Jeffrey. Orbiters and Soyuz towered on stacks of LOX and hydrogen.
Orbiters and Soyuz towered on stacks of LOX and hydrogen.
LOX is?
He calls it LOX.
Oh, okay.
So it's just delicious smoked salmon. It's liquid oxygen, actually.
Right. Liquid oxygen mixed with liquid hydrogen makes a kaboom.
Rocket fuel. Literal rocket fuel, yeah.
And then this is my favorite delivery. But what a little squib. A little firework.
But what a little squib. A little firework.
I love this format of this piece because he is able to put those emphases on those words and really bring that out.
Yeah, and as this mythical narrator too, like he's able to put a little sass into it, you know, like, oh, it was nothing. It was a blank squib.
What's a squib?
A squib is what is used in theater, and I mean, I imagine in movies as well. It's a blank.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Or is it the thing that is worn on the body to represent being hit by a bullet? I don't remember. I think it's a blank.
No, I think you're right. I think also in Britain, a squib is a firecracker.
Oh, okay.
It's a firework that burns with a hissing noise before exploding. It is also a short piece of satirical writing.
Oh, interesting. I want to be a squibber.
A squibbler?
A squibbler. Oh, that's good. The squibbler.
Can also be a verb, archaic, to utter, write, or publish. As in, it is now a sport to taunt and squib and to deride at other men's virtue.
Oh, which is funny because he's kind of, with his tone, he's
squibbing.
Yeah.
He's squibbing using the word squib.
Yeah.
Wow.
Layers upon layers, this Ian.
In American football, this will be good information for us to work into conversations at the sports bar. To squib in American football is to kick the ball a comparatively short distance. We decided to squib the kick.
Oh, instead of trying to get yardage, you try to keep it close by.
It's like, I guess it's like punting in base.
Bunting in baseball.
It's like a bunt cake.
Yes, that's what they do in baseball. Yeah,
delicious. I've been underestimating it this whole time. Okay, Jules Verne.
Oh no,
this guy. Oh no, take a quick nap. But this idea of like this massive, tons and tons and tons of rocket fuel, which lifted this huge object literally off of the planet, was just a little firecracker.
That's it.
There's this wonderful story by Jules Verne in which the Baltimore Gun Club decides, hey, we want to open up, it's very relevant to today, actually. They're like, we want to open up economic activity in Antarctica or on the North Pole, because there was a debate at that time whether or not it was just ice or whether or not there was any land underneath it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so the debate in the book, in the story, is there's got to be lots of natural resources. If only we could melt all that ice, we could get it, and America could be there first.
Was Jules Verne American?
No, he's French.
Oh, okay.
But the Baltimore Gun Club in his stories is American. Anytime he needed people to do big things loudly,
loud things. Yeah.
he wrote them as Americans. And so what they decide to do is to use the principle of kickback when you fire a cannon and build a cannon into a mountain on the Earth so big that the kickback from firing it would actually tilt the Earth on its axis, pointing the North Pole closer to the sun, which would melt all the ice away, and then we could go up and do it.
That's very Rube Goldberg, and I love it.
And so most of the book is them doing math and being like, well, in order for it to be big enough, you have to build it. It has to, the mouth of the cannon has to be 200 feet wide, and the payload has to be this many millions of pounds. And there's all this. How do we source all the inflammables to actually set this thing off? And all the world governments are like, wait, you can't do this without talking to us. Anyway, they set it off. It deafens everyone within a 10-mile radius. It blows up the mountain. And then everyone's waiting to be like, well, did we actually move the Earth?
Yeah, right.
It's pretty ballsy. And then they realize that during one of the calculations, their lead mathematician had been struck by lightning. His house had been struck by lightning. Why not?
Yeah.
And he had misplaced a decimal point.
Oh, no.
And so they had used only 1/10 or 1/100th of the actual power needed. It would have had to have been 100 times bigger in order to achieve what they were doing. But it's funny because the whole story is them building this massive gun, firing it, and it does nothing. It has no effect.
They actually avoided a disaster, because I cannot imagine firing the 10 times or 100 times as much would have been a good end.
Exactly. But it's sort of, it all to me is a bit of a parable to the futility of, man, that like, yes, man can do amazing things, but only so far.
Yeah, the futility and the hubris, I think, of man.
That wonderful combination. Futile hubris.
Yeah.
The futility of hubris.
Hubrile.
The hubrisity.
Did they tell which mountain that they put it in?
I think they do name exactly where it was. I forget where.
Obviously not something worth remembering.
Not to me. So, but what a little squib, a little firework in the cosmic crash of fiery fusion as far galaxies collide, drowned in the vastness of all we see still can only imagine.
In the cosmic crash of fiery fusion as far galaxies collide, drowned in the vastness of all we see and still can only imagine.
I read some stat that the observable universe is a fraction of a percentage point of the real universe.
Yeah. I imagine a lot of that is because of dark matter, but also just scope-wise.
Yeah. And our limited comprehension.
Yes. Yeah, the little squib in comparison to that fiery fusion as galaxies collide. Like, that's
exactly.
You haven't seen anything until you've seen that.
It literally is not even measurable on the same scale.
Yeah, it's a blip. It's a gnat flying by.
Yeah. Conclusion, let's not worry about the wandering man. He'll wander hither if he can. But his time may have already come and gone.
Let's not worry about the wandering man. He'll wander hither if he can, but his time may have already come and gone.
Fun word, hither.
Yes.
It means to here.
Mm-hmm.
Thither, to there.
Mm-hmm.
Whither, to where. I think that we sort of lost track of some of those words in modern English.
Yeah. Whither goest thou?
Zither.
Zover there.
So we start with this question: should we allow mankind to go out to leave Earth and spread their seed on other planets? And the conclusion is probably something we don't even have to worry about.
Yeah, exactly. They've hit their peak and they're going down from here. Nothing to worry about.
I was talking with my dad about space exploration, and he surprised me. He's firmly of the opinion that human colonies on other planets simply will not work.
Mm.
And I said, well, why? Couldn't you find a way to have all the resources that you need? And he said, human beings are not really a separate organism from everything else that exists on Earth.
Mm.
every single life form on Earth is all really part of the same system. And if you take one element out of that, it's not going to survive on its own.
Yeah.
Maybe for a little bit of time, but it's not going to be able to thrive. We evolved, we are designed to live here.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's right, and I doubt that we will get the opportunity to find out in our lifetime.
Yeah, we'd be pretty anemic living on Mars, that's for sure.
Ugh,
Yeah.
and bored.
Bored. Bring lots of books. Bring lots of Jules Verne.
Bring lots of that game where you have a string tied to a little stick with a cup on it.
Cup and ball game, yeah.
The cup and ball game. You have to make it a little bit heavier than normal because the
Gravity,
gravity
yeah.
is less on Mars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the date for Errationes Ad Astra is 2024. Just last year.
And let me check. Have we colonized any other worlds?
No.
Nope. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah. So that's 10 years after this album was produced and released. And I think it might be a little bit of what you were talking about with Jules Verne and Brunel, is that maybe Ian is speculating like just enough, given the data that he has, he's speculating just enough into the future, making, without diving too deep into the logistics, making kind of logical progressions in theory and where we're going.
Yeah. And his conclusion is it's all a bit of a faff.
Doesn't quite matter ultimately, yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
He could have easily written there are other songs about space exploration, Space Oddity,
Yeah.
Apogee,
Mm-hmm.
Ziggy Stardust,
Mm-hmm. 2 Tull songs and two David Bowie songs.
Man on the Moon,
Okay. Rocket Man.
Fly Me to the Moon,
Mm-hmm.
Across the Universe,
Yes.
Major Tom.
Yes.
Oh, we said Rocket Man.
Yes, I just did, yeah. Ground control to Rocket Man. What a mashup that would be.
Yeah.
Ground control to Rocket Man.
Well, and I think that prog rock in general has played with the idea of, part of the prog part is imagining our own future.
Right. Progressive. Progress. Yeah.
Yeah, if there was a time where I was like, oh yeah, I would go to Mars, that would be so cool. And then there was a point like 3 minutes later where I was like,
No.
I like oatmeal. I like fried chicken. I like frogs.
I thought you didn't like oatmeal.
I want the option. I like being able to be like, no thanks, oatmeal.
I like not enjoying oatmeal. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and on Mars,
On
on Mars,
the moors of Mars.
the Mars of Mars, you wouldn't have an option. It'd be oat supplement number 3 or starve.
Yeah, have you I know the answer to this already, but have you seen the movie Mickey 17?
I just saw Mickey 17.
You did? Okay, good. Yeah, it reminds me of that, to be honest. Just like the little protein cubes that they eat.
Yeah. Oh, don't waste a calorie.
Yes, exactly.
No sex. It's a waste of calories.
Did you like it?
Sex?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I don't see what all the fuss is about.
Let's not worry about the wandering man. He'll wander hither if he can, but his time may have already come and gone.
Nick,
Omen.
final thoughts on Per Errationes Ad Astra.
I was a little nonplussed by it at first, given the scope of the music that we've had up until this point, saving the spoken bit for literally the second to last song, I think is not a strange choice per se, but I mean, like Ian builds and constructs exactly how he wants.
Yes.
With purpose. I get that. I totally get that. But yeah, I was a little underwhelmed at first, I think. But as usual, us talking about it has really kind of made me appreciate it more.
I think it's become one of my favorite tracks on the album.
Really?
Up there with Puer Ferox.
Wow.
And and the Turnpike Inn.
Mhm.
I think that I would have been interested to hear a little bit more of this voice, even this character, kind of throughout.
Yes, that would have been cool, actually. Yeah.
It would have been, because like I think that maybe what this album is missing is a little bit of a through line for the listener. You know, it would have been very cool to be like, I'm almost thinking of it as like a 1950s health class video. Human beings, what are they?
Yeah.
And are they a danger?
Yeah.
Let's look at them from the very beginning.
Feels very Futurama to me.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think we've discussed that before, that lack of cohesion through it, other than this kind of rough idea of traveling through and the progression of man.
When you get it at the end almost.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that's what the album was about.
Right, yes. But all told, yeah, not bad. Not bad. It's not a song. It's not a piece I would skip. It's short enough to not need to skip it.
This is the song that I will be screaming along to in the car on my road trip.
Tears running down your face.
We thought it over for a century or two.
Oh, you speak my heart, Ian.
I do enjoy this song. I enjoy Ian's recitations. Here's to more of this. Next week, Nick, what is it that we have the distinct pleasure of being allowed to speak about by the powers of the universe?
Oh my God, it is such a pleasure to speak the last song off of this album.
El Canción Final.
It is 2044, Cold Dead Reckoning, which is thrilling and exciting. Cold Dead Reckoning.
I really, really like it, yeah. Ultima Carmina.
Ultima Carmina.
I think that's Latin.
Carmina is...
Or would it be Ultima, Canto Ultimo?
Canta, yeah.
Canto Ultimo.
Canta Ultima. Yeah.
Until next week, I've got my right stuff in a can of Spam. I'm Omen Thomas Sade.
I'm fine in my own place. I am Nick McGill.
Together, we are the Lox and Hydrogen, which explode in the form of the Feckless Momes.
And we thought it over for a century or two, and then we finally decided to make Talk Tell to Me.
Good night, Bert. Boy, look at that moon. Isn't that pretty? Did you ever think you might like to visit the moon? Well, I did.
Well, I'd like to visit the moon on a rocket ship high in the air. Yes, I'd like to visit the moon, but I don't think I'd like to live there. Though I'd like to look down at the earth from above, I would miss all the places and people I love. So although I might like it for one afternoon, I don't want to live on the moon. I'd like to travel under the sea. I could meet all the fish everywhere. Yes, I'd travel under the sea, but I don't think I'd like to live there. I might stay for a day there if I had my wish, but there's not much to do when your friends are all fish, and an oyster and clam aren't real family, so I don't want to live in the sea. I'd like to visit the jungle, hear the lions roar, go back in time and meet a dinosaur. There's so many strange places I'd like to be, but none of them permanently. So if I should visit the moon, well, I'll dance on a moonbeam, and then I will make a wish on a star, and I'll wish I was home once again. Though I'd like to look down at the earth from above, I would miss all the places and people I love. So although I may go, I'll be coming home soon. 'Cause I don't want to live on the moon. No, I don't want to live on the moon.